Hello, welcome to our channel, Ascending in Truth. I'm Isabella and I'm here with Eve.
Hello.
We are on episode 2. We're going to get into now the part about the author. So if Eve, you could tell us a little bit more about the author and how you found out about him and your experiences with
the
that.
author, again, it's Daniel Maurois. So I met him the first time. It was on a small place called Tourette-sur-Loup on the French Riviera, and I think it was probably 1987 or something like that.
Oh, okay, a long time ago.
Yeah, right around the harmonic convergence of August 1987.
Oh.
And we were in some kind of a place for spiritual retreats. And so he came with his wife, his first wife, Anne Givaudan. And basically they gave a speech, and it was under some kind of big tent. You know, there were tons of people coming from all over the place. Somewhere from, I remember somewhere from Italy, even Spain and Belgium. So, and again, you know, his books were becoming extremely popular. That couple was actually selling a lot of books. Their first book, which is about astral traveling, was very interesting and was very raised a lot of curiosity and questions.
Was that the first time you heard about astral traveling?
That was the first time when I read his book. That was the first time. Yes.
Okay.
So I had read a few of his books before meeting him in person,
right.
But that was really interesting.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then the second time was when they organized a very big meeting, a very large gathering in their property in the Gers, which is somewhere between Toulouse and Bordeaux. They had a huge, very large property, some kind of farm. And I remember there was like, at least I would say probably 500 people who came from all around the Europe, you know.
Different Europe, from different places.
Different places.
Ooh.
And they had multiple people also of the New Age. And one of them, I think the most remarkable was Dr. Tal Schaller, who actually operates a clinic in Switzerland and has written a lot of books. I mean, Dr. Tal Schaller was very interesting because he brought with him a few of his patients. And those patients were unusual. They were all rock stars.
Oh, okay.
From the west coast of the United States.
Okay.
And all of them had AIDS.
So he had these rock stars come.
He had all these rock stars, and all of them were suffering from AIDS. And he was actually in the process of healing them from that disease. So all these people, you know, some of them were gay, you know, coming from San Francisco, which is not unusual. But a lot of them had basically taken, you know, probably drugs, and they may have been infected through the use of needles and
however that happens.
Yeah, however that happened. I mean, we know that the source of the AIDS was pretty much the hepatitis C vaccine, which was laced with the AIDS, the virus. The protocol that Dr. Tal Schaller was using to help those people feel better and heal this very difficult disease was twofold. First of all, they were doing a special diet, of course, right? Second, they were doing, they were using a lot of laughs and positive thoughts and vibrations. You know,
I've
breathing
heard about
work.
that where people laugh and laugh, and that's
so actually it was
high
interesting
vibe.
because Dr. Tal Schaller was giving he was being a clown on the stage.
Yeah.
Everybody, I mean, all the 500 people of the audience were just, you know, laughing like like crazy. It was really something. It was a very good meeting. I mean, I really enjoyed it, and I wish we could have more of these, you know. But so basically that was the second time I met Daniel Maurois. I mean, I never talked to him directly, of course, but I could see how good of a man, and his first wife too, how both of them were really dedicated to the New Age.
Well, they could actually, there's a lot of people. 500 people is a lot, especially when it seems like it's, I don't want to say underground, but not as the exposure isn't there,
Right,
especially back
yeah,
then. It was a
right.
little bit
Yeah,
harder.
there was no internet.
Right?
You know, everything was
Yeah.
basically
Because you read the book.
because of the books. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So what intrigued you so much about this author and about reading the books?
Well,
what was that really?
I mean, actually, I read most of their books. I mean, you know, when he started writing, he was writing with his first wife. They were doing the books together, basically. And later on, when he separated from her and moved to Quebec, he was on his own. But I've always found these books so fascinating because his approach is really different from whatever else, whoever else is using. You know, the fact that, so the protocol for writing a book is basically he has the capability to move his consciousness into the astral plane. So basically he goes into a relaxed mode, you know, kind of a trance mode, and his body gets out of his physical body. And at this point he travels and he crosses directly into the famous Akashic records. And over there, he's either guided or invited to consult and visualize certain records.
Okay.
And that's how he does it. Yeah.
How many books did he write?
Well, he wrote about, we mentioned that in the
first
previous,
one, yeah.
I think about 40
About
books.
40 books.
Yeah,
Okay.
40
You
books.
think you read them all?
No, I probably read about a good half.
Oh,
And
okay. Well,
yeah,
that's
I
a lot.
I own probably a good half.
That's a lot.
I've read most of the books related to the Essenes traditions and the life of Jesus and the life of the disciples and, you know, everything related around that time.
Right.
I've read also a few books about when he travels to a place called Shambhala, and we're gonna talk about it again about Shambhala when we move to certain episodes of the life of Yeshua, because there is a connection here between Yeshua and Shambhala. So we'll explain what is Shambhala.
So you had mentioned earlier on about the harmonic convergence. I think there's probably some
yes.
people who might
Yes.
not know what that is.
Yes, so the harmonic convergence is something which is very, very unusual and very interesting. It took place, I think, on the 21st or around the 20th of August, 1987. And I think it was shortly after the terrible accident that took place in Russia where this nuclear power plant
Oh, right.
exploded. You know, I think it was around the same time or shortly after that. And so the harmonic convergence is basically a very strange process. The Earth's planet and its inhabitants, you know, I think at that time it was probably like 6 billion or 6.5 billion people, were gauged to see about their spiritual development. So this was done, of course, by extraterrestrial entities, you know, council, galactic federations, and other people in charge of the evolution of this planet and its inhabitants, Earth humans,
When
basically.
you say entities, you mean like angelic and
No,
masters?
not really
or-
angelic. I would say more masters and extraterrestrial beings.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
some people might have a different
Right,
idea when you say
yeah.
entities. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, forget
well,
it.
entities can be positive
Yeah.
and negative. Those are positive. I mean,
Okay.
they are like basically our parents from space, making sure that, you know, our evolution and our growth is taking place in an harmonious way.
Okay.
And that's why it's called the harmonic convergence.
Okay.
They want to verify that everybody was converging toward harmony. And so, fortunately, we passed the test. It was, from what I heard, it was close result. Yes. Well, because let me tell you, if we had not passed the test, it meant that the human race was doomed to fail the evolution, spiritual evolution that it was supposed to do.
Meant to have.
Meant to have, yeah.
Yeah.
And what they had an enormous asteroid called Mirva, M-I-R-V-A, that was being sent in direction of the Earth. And that enormous asteroid was, at the last minute, was moved and its trajectory changed.
Who changed that trajectory?
The same people that gave us the estimation and the gauging of where we were.
Oh.
Yeah. So they realized at one point that, you know, we were going nowhere. We were basically warring all the time, you know. The governments were corrupt. There is an enormous amount of corruption among the elite and the governments, which I think is being revealed nowadays in 2024.
Yeah, I don't think people know.
You really have to be blind not to realize
Right.
that a lot of things are wrong.
Right.
Took a few years to come to the
History's
surface.
changed. Everything's like not
Yeah.
what it should be. All we thought it
So
should be.
they realized that, you know, something was wrong and we were not going in the right direction. And because of the efforts of small spiritual groups around the planet, it's not only in the Western world, okay? I would say mostly in Africa and Asia. They're probably the one who saved the game. They decide, okay, well, maybe it's worth expanding and continuing the experiment, the human experiment.
So
a
they
little
saw
bit
that there was
further.
a higher state of consciousness,
They saw
and it probably was
potentially,
just like
they saw the
maybe a
potential.
million people.
Yes.
Were, okay.
They saw the potential for a possibility to go higher. You know, it's always like that in the evolution of humankind. I mean, it gets horrible before it gets slightly better. And I think we are seeing that today, right?
I think we are.
The
I'm ready for the slightly better right
Yes.
now. Yeah.
The previous 4 or 5 years have clearly indicated what is going on, right?
Well, to me, that sounds to me like it's all breaking up so much for like this beautiful
Yes.
opening
So,
and awakening
just to
happen.
conclude on the harmonic convergence, basically they gave us another chance.
Okay.
Yeah, a little bit more chance, you know. I mean, they knew that 2012, you know, and the so-called ascension was coming, so they wanted to give it another chance. Otherwise, you know, they just do like an artist, right? You just destroy and start with a clean slate.
And we would never know anything about it.
No, we would never know
Yeah.
anything about it. You know, again,
I think it's happened before.
it has happened before. I think, you know, the extinction of the dinosaur could have been one of those experiments.
Like, it didn't
That
work.
failed.
Too many T-Rexes on here. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, and again, you know, they consider the human vehicle, the physical vehicle, as temporary. So even if they destroy the surface of the planet, everybody would perish, of course, because there would be like a nuclear winter, right?
Right.
In 3 days, everybody's dead, pretty much,
Right.
without the sunshine.
That's a little depressing. Let's
Yeah.
not go there.
And then, you know, they would start seeding the planet again with something better. Yeah. So that is the harmonic convergence.
Okay.
And the infamous Mirva asteroid.
Did anybody
that
feel
misses.
anything? Because I'm trying to think of like, where was I in 1980? Like, would you have felt anything?
I don't think we needed to feel anything. We were
Okay.
being
We were
probed.
just giving a
We
chance.
were being probed and
Yeah.
analyzed, you know, engaged.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, I don't know how they do this kind of analysis or gauging, but that's the way it happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess the consciousness was raised a little bit.
The consciousness was
yeah.
deemed high enough
Yeah.
to maintain the evolution of the human race
Yeah.
as it is today, you know. And I think they can probably see that they were right to extend it because I think the overall consciousness of the human beings have considerably raised in the past 5 to 6 years. Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I definitely see that.
I mean, people are awakening, and we can see clearly that there is a lot of progress being
Right.
made.
And I think a lot of people are starting to realize who they are, their own divinity. Too.
Right, yes.
So I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit more about the main?
Yeah, let's go back to the story of
let's go back to-
Yeshua.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we
you know,
kind of go off a little.
Yeah,
Sorry,
we
we don't
went
mean to go
into
off on tangents,
a
but
lot of tangent, but
I
those-
just feel like everything kind of goes together. It's like
It does.
like we're creating
does.
a story here.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does because, you know, if you think about it, this harmonic convergence took place about 2,000 years later than the coming of Yeshua on this planet, right? Also, we talked about Shambhala, and we're going to come back to that during the story. We talked about some kind of extraterrestrial or galactic beings overlooking our growth,
Right.
and we will relate to that as well during the review of the life of Yeshua. So it's a good thing to do.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I would like to do now is talk about some of the protagonists of the story, basically, right?
Right.
I mean, we know some of them through the biblical scriptures and different writings. So the first one, and I'm going to try to use during the presentation as much as possible their original name, and sometimes I will also mention the westernized name. Okay, so the father of Yeshua is Yusuf. Okay, so that's his name. I think he's known as Joseph, right, in the Western Bibles. And I wanted to describe a little bit who Yusuf was. I mean, in the Bible, incorrectly, he's pictured as a carpenter, which was not at all his trade. Actually, Yusuf was a very revered and respected man. He was in charge of an Essenian temple in Jerusalem that he was overlooking. He was also a priest in the Essenian communities. He was someone who was extremely, he was a scholar, he was capable of writing, and he was consulted by a lot of people for different social and personal problems. So he was some kind of advisor.
Right. Okay.
So,
Well, I could see.
exactly. So, I mean, if you think about it, is to become the father of one of the highest being ever living on this planet.
Right.
So it cannot be coming from some kind of.
Oh, even a carpenter could, but
No,
but
a carpenter
this,
could,
this
but I
sounds
mean,
more like
you have to.
where Jesus would incarnate it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to have someone who's really capable. Yeah. So again, Yusuf, very very respected man. Yusuf was married before, and he was a widow. So from his first marriage, he had 4 sons.
Okay.
And one of them, I think, is known in the Bible under the name of Jacob, which in the American Bible is James, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but his real name was Jacob. Yeah. So that's Yusuf, father of Yeshua. So of course we have heard more about Miriam, the mother of Yeshua. She's known as Mary, the Virgin Mary, in the tradition. But her name was Miriam. Miriam. Yeah, there are a lot of Miriams in that that tradition, and so Miriam was also a very unique woman. Before she becomes a teenager, during her youth, she was what we call a dove. She was basically a priestess in the Essenian temples. So she's not a village girl, basically, right?
I think you need to expand a little bit more on priestess, because people might have something else in mind when you say that.
Yeah, well, she was, how do you call those people? Maybe an oracle.
Okay.
Someone, who can see the future, who has extrasensorial perceptions.
Right.
I mean, obviously, again, we're talking about a very refined and evolved, advanced being. Let's keep in mind again that she's gonna carry and bear Yeshua and give him a physical envelope, right? Physical vehicle. So you have to have a mother and a being extremely advanced,
right,
to be able to create a vehicle with a DNA capable of withstanding the incredible vibration that this being is bringing on this planet.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the mother has to be absolutely outstanding. And I think again the traditional Bible and the traditional scriptures are really downplaying, her role and her capabilities.
Well, they downplayed women all along.
Yes, and we will understand why.
So nothing new.
And then we have the main protagonist, Yusuf ben Yusuf, also known as Jesus. And later on, his name will be under the name of Yeshua. You will see that he goes through different names, but yeah, when he was born, it was Yusuf ben Yusuf, which means basically Yusuf, the son of Yusuf.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this is what they, you know, in the Jewish tradition as well as the Arabic tradition, they use those kind of
That's
names.
right. Yeah, like
Yeah.
Patrick Ben David.
Mhm,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
I was now I understand what that is
Yeah,
from.
Patrick
like,
Ben
what?
David is basically Patrick, the son of David.
David. Yeah. Okay. Now I know.
Yeah. So, and again, when Yeshua is young, I will try to use the name Yeshua because, you know, otherwise we have too many Yusuf floating around.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it can be very confusing.
Like the
Yeah.
Miriams, because there'll be a
Yeah.
lot of Miriams
Right.
coming up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth person I want to introduce is extremely important, is Yusuf HaRamatiyam. So he's the uncle of Yeshua, and is known as Joseph of Arimathea. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so Arimathea was a small village. I think it's called Era now in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Era, something like that. And so Yusuf from Aramati was a very successful trader. He had a fleet of boats. He was doing all kind of commercial exchanges. Yusuf was very influential with the Sanhedrin, which is basically the Jewish government, religious and government, all combined in Jerusalem. So he was a member of that group, the Sanhedrin. I think there were like 13 or maybe 20 people. I need to review that.
So it's a group, wasn't like a different tribe. It was just a different
No.
group.
It's a political group.
A political group. Okay.
That basically control the government and the religious authorities.
Okay.
Okay, and Yusuf, because of his financial success and his position as a very successful merchant, was part of that group.
Oh, okay.
So, and we will see that Yusuf is basically facilitating, coordinating, making everything possible, because young Yeshua is going to do a lot of traveling around the world. Something which is not, of course, related in the official scriptures. And all this traveling is organized by his uncle.
Not always by foot, I guess.
No, not always by foot. Sometimes by boat.
By boat, yeah.
Sometimes on the back of a mule
Yeah.
or a donkey,
Yeah.
or a camel.
Mm-hmm.
I also want to mention another character. So we will come back to all these people in due time,
Right.
to give more information about them and where they live and what they have been doing. So our fifth protagonist is Simon, who is basically the son of the potter in the little village where where Yeshua was born. And Simon today is the author and the reader of the Akashic records.
Oh.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah. So Daniel Morois used to be Simon
One of his past lives.
in one of his past life, 2,000 years ago, and he was a very close friend of Yeshua. They played together as kids and so forth.
Can we just do a little side note for a minute about past lives? Because that is so against anything that the religious, Christians would.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to understand why that is. It's like, do you know why it's like it's
No, I
against
know
the law?
that, the whole concept of reincarnation, which is very prevalent in the Hinduism and the Buddhism,
right?
has been completely wiped out of the Christian scriptures. Yeah. And I think it's probably to limit the capability and to limit the capability that people can do, what they can do, and to make them understand that there is only one path, which is their path.
Right.
And you have one shot, one chance.
Right.
You either go to heaven or you go to hell.
Right.
So I see it as a fantastic
It's very
tool
limiting.
of control.
Yeah. And then what do you do with that? Because it's not, knowing that you reincarnate, you want to work on any karma
Yes.
or anything that's happened in the past or anything
Right.
that you're creating today.
Yeah.
You know, it's not so much about that God is going to punish me. It's like, this is hurting me.
Right.
Whatever thing
Yeah,
I do.
and
You know.
reincarnation explains so many of the inequity and inequality that we see in our world, right? Some people are coming with a fantastic vehicle, other people are coming totally deformed, limbs missing.
But that might not be like that could be their karma, yes, but it could be the parents' karma. It could be whoever's,
it could
you know
yes.
what I mean? It's not
Oh,
always
absolutely,
just
absolutely.
that person sacrificed because their parents needed to learn whatever
Right.
they didn't learn in a
Yeah.
previous lifetime.
But again, you are thinking about in terms of reincarnation. You
Right.
think about reincarnation of the parents, right?
Right, right.
They were given the tools to suffer because in previous lifetimes, Anyway,
Yeah, sorry.
once
It was a little side note,
yeah,
but yeah.
once you accept the notion of reincarnation, everything makes so much
It
more
does.
sense.
Yeah, and you can
Everything
really,
becomes, oh yes,
Yeah.
now I understand. Why am I married to such a woman, a wife, or why do I have those kids? You are giving me a headache. Everything makes so much more sense.
Right, right. And you can be more accepting of it.
Exactly.
Because the more we're accepting about those things,
Yes.
the easier it is to be able to heal it and
Yeah.
forgive it.
And it gives you a chance also to be better in your current lifetime
Right,
and try not to accumulate any negative karma in the past, in the future.
right.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't have any rationale while the so-called, Catholic and religious instances remove that notion, but it is so important.
It is in one of the books that they took out of the Bible, though.
Oh, is it?
It is.
Okay.
It's in there. I
I'm
don't know which
sure.
book it is,
Yeah.
but it's one that's probably still in the Vatican.
But
hidden away.
when you know that it is a prevalent notion in Hinduism, Buddhism, probably in the Asian
In
and
Asian?
Chinese,
Oh, absolutely.
Chinese, why is it not discussed or presented to the Western world? I'll leave the audience to think about it.
Right.
So, another important character is Mariam, who will become the spouse of Yeshua. Okay? She was, in the Western world, she's known as Mary Magdalena. It was not her name. They call her Magdalena because she was born in a village of Migdal, which is next to the lake where Yeshua spent most of his teachings, So, because she was from Migdal, her name was Miriam of Migdal, and she became Miriam Magdalena, or Mary Magdalena.
And the prostitute, no less.
And of
too.
course, but we'll get back to that.
Yeah, we need to get back
Because
to
she
that.
doesn't
We need to clear her name.
Yes, she doesn't
Her name
deserve to
needs
be
to be
a
cleared.
prostitute.
Yeah.
She had a very unhappy marriage, not with Yeshua, but with a former guy. We will talk about that later. And that guy was very influential in writing the Bible and different books. And because he was a violent man and couldn't stand his wife, he tried to desecrate all the female characters and all the female principle in general.
Well, really.
That's
could
how
see
it
that.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Another important character is Shlomit. Shlomit is known as Salome or Mary Salome in our. So we'll talk a little bit about her. She's an interesting character. Quite brave and courageous women at that time, because
At this time too.
yes, they were all Jewish women, basically squashed by the Jewish patriarchal culture and religion. So for these women to do something, they were really brave. They really wanted to do
Well,
something.
that tribe the Assyrian tribe was very different
Yes.
from any of the other
Right.
tribes.
Yeah. Another character is Jacobi. She's known as Jacobe or Mary Jacobi also in the scriptures. So we'll talk about her as well. Another very important person is Yohanan. Okay, Yohanan, and we will publish a chart with all the names, so it's easier for people.
Right.
Because I
They
think
can understand
it's
it a little better.
important to so you can correlate, the names. So Yohanan is also Johann, and is John the Baptist. Okay, so very influential and pivotal character in the life of Yeshua. We'll talk about Proclus. Proclus is the spouse of Pontius Pilate. Basically, she's the wife of the Roman, not emperor, but a Roman person in charge of the community in that place, in Judea and Galilee at that time. Then we're going to talk about Eleazar, okay, which is the original name of John. It's not John the Baptist, it's John the disciple, the first disciple of Yeshua, okay? And again, his name has been creating all kind of convoluted story in the Bible which are not right, which are not exact. I mean, they have been using his name in the resurrection of Lazarus, right?
Oh, Lazarus.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Because again, this is an baptization of the name of Eleazar. Eleazar was never dead, never died, but they, it's another story that they weaved in the scripture. Then we have Yosh-Heram, which is basically a very old friend of Yeshua, and he's the guy who is going to travel with Yeshua to Asia, to India and Asia. And we'll talk about him because those Yeshua and Yosh-Heram are going to be spending many years together, traveling to the east. Then there are a couple of other characters. I mean, one of them is Judas. Judas was the brother of Yeshua. Okay, he was born from Miriam, Mother Mary. We have also Thomas, who was another brother of Yeshua, born from the same mother as well. We have Sarah, who is a sister of Yeshua, again born from the same mother, Mary. And then we mentioned Jacob, who is an older brother. He was basically his what you call
Half-brother.
Half-brother, yeah. And there was 3 other half-brothers as well. Yeah. So Yusuf, the father of Yeshua, had 4 kids with his first wife. Yeah.
So he had a lot of brothers and sisters.
He had at least 7 or 8 brothers and sisters.
There's a lot of cousins running around.
Yes. Definitely.
Wow.
Yeah.
That line definitely have lived on.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think indeed, yeah.
Why don't we talk about the Immaculate Conception?
Yes, you're bringing a very good point. Before we talk about the birth of Yeshua, let's talk about Immaculate Conception. So basically, if we refer to the scriptures and to the Bible, Mary had some kind of annunciation where Archangel Gabriel, I believe, right,
Yes.
came and told her that she would be bearing a being of very high importance, maybe a future Messiah or something like that, right? So, and we can understand that because Mary was a very advanced being, very spiritually developed. She was extremely sensitive, so it makes perfect sense that she would have a connection with either her higher self or some kind of angelic presence,
Well, I'm sure she was getting her body ready to be able to receive that kind
Yes,
of energy.
on top of that, yeah. Definitely. Oh, I think her
Hmm.
body had been probably prepared, during multiple incarnations ahead of time.
Right.
The coming of an avatar like Yeshua probably requires multiple incarnations of preparations.
Right.
So what I want to talk about is the concept of Immaculate Conception. And the first thing which is important to know is that when we want to create or conceive a physical vehicle on the planet Earth, you have to have a sexual union, okay? So, as we know, spermatozoid had to be meeting the ovum in the fallopian tubes. That's the normal way of doing it. I'm not talking about in vitro, fertilization or whatever. This is a different subject. But the natural way is that way. In addition to that, this is the physical aspect of it. But physical aspect is not the only aspect. There is also an energetic aspect. The energy, what basically develops the physical body and keeps it alive. The second aspect is linked to what we talked about in the first episode, this little recorder, which I also named the atom germ. So that atom germs basically records all your incarnations throughout your life streams, okay? And this little particle of energy, which is recording every single details of your life, goes back to the Akashic realm when you die, and then comes down again when you are ready to be incarnated again. And the way it comes down and gets into your new body or your upcoming body is through the father. Actually, that piece of energy goes through the male and then piggybacks on the spermatozoid that is going to fertilize the ovum.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's quite...
yeah.
So, of course, modern science doesn't know anything about that because they probably don't care about it, or they don't want to know, they don't put any money into researching that. But the people who have the capability to see energetic bodies and have auric vision can see that happening. So that little piece of energy piggybacks, comes from the father basically, But because it goes through the physical body of the father, it is tainted and colored by the personality of the father as well. Okay? So, in the case of a very advanced being like Yeshua, which we call an avatar, they want to avoid the tainting of that original record and bring it directly to the mother. Okay. And that's what happened.
Okay.
So basically this Archangel Gabriel helped the introduction of that little piece of energy, little nucleus of energy into the body of Mary. And this energy was implanted into the fallopian tube or into the
That
uterus.
must have been the Immaculate Conception.
Yes.
That's probably what it was.
That's what they call the Immaculate Conception. So what happened is that Mary had the symptoms of a pregnant woman. Her period stopped, and she was feeling like a woman starting to have a baby.
Oh.
But you still need to develop and start the creation of the physical body. So for that, she had to have a union, a sexual union and sexual intercourse with Joseph, right?
Right.
And because she received that nucleus of energy, that atom germ, early on, they didn't have the time to prepare the wedding. In the Jewish tradition, you cannot have sexual relations until you're married. I mean, it's the same in the Arabic traditions, and it was the same in Christian tradition. I mean, the woman had to come virgin and had to be pure before she was married, right? So Yusuf, her husband, knew about what she has. He knew about her symptoms. He knew his role in the coming life of Yeshua, and they both agreed to have sexual union before the marriage. And of course, this is not mentioned in the scripture, but they had to do it because that nucleus of energy lives only a certain time. And because of the astral and planetary configuration.
That's right. All the planets had to be lined up perfectly.
All the planets, exactly, in the
right.
zodiacal configuration had to be aligned in a certain way. And so the conception of Yeshua had to take place at that time. and they didn't have enough time to prepare the wedding. I think it was taking a few weeks to prepare the weddings, gather everybody. And so they had to have unions, sexual unions, before their wedding, which is absolutely normal and which is absolutely understandable. I mean, nowadays it doesn't shock anybody, right?
Right.
But at that time, the Jewish religion was so stringent about that a woman could be stoned to death if she had sex before an official marriage.
Right.
So I think people should look at Immaculate Conception with a different perspective now, right? I mean, there is the conception done through the energetic body, right? With this atom germ being implanted into Mary. And then there is the absolutely necessary fusion of the spermatozoid and the ovum in the fallopian tubes to create the physical vehicle.
Oh.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's how it works. And so in our next episode, we will be talking about the birth of Yeshua, where it took place. We will be presenting some maps also, because I think we need to, what is being said in the Bible, in the scripture, is not exactly correct. And, you cannot blame those people. I mean, they were not present.
It's like the telephone game.
Yeah, and a lot of stories were, created and weaved on top of
for control and make the story flow, I guess.
And
I
because,
don't know.
it's all, a lot of it is based on gossiping, and gossiping and hearsay. So, again, people who wrote all these scriptures were not present when all these things happen. So the only thing to have a clear and precise understanding and is really to look into the Akashic records. I mean, we have to be honest with us. We can either embrace stories or we can look at it from a factual point of view and say, okay, this is how it took place. Right.
Which makes more sense.
Which makes more sense and which much more logical too.
It does seem much more logical than what we've gotten.
So,
can we go back for just a minute to when you said that the atom seed?
Atom germ.
Could be tainted by the father? What do you mean by that?
Well, I don't know exactly, but that's what I've read and the way I understand. The fact that it goes through the body and the personality and the energetic field of the father automatically could bring some kind of alteration or modification or, which is probably not a problem.
It can't be really noticeable, I wouldn't think.
Yeah,
because
that stuff happens anyway when a normal child is born.
Right.
It has the traits of the father, but also of the mother, right?
Right.
And the physical physically they may resemble one more than the other, and from a psychological and energetical point of view, they may be one or the other, right?
Right.
So, I think it's perfectly understandable that there is some kind of influence given by both.
Right.
So in the case of Yeshua, because it's an avatar who coming from a very high level vibration, very much higher density than we are, and because of the role he had to play, it had to be as pure as possible. And because Miriam, was a perfectly pure receptacle and vessel for the incarnation of the physical body of Yeshua, she received this energy directly.
Okay.
Yeah. So something else too, since we are talking about that, and I think it's important to realize that the female body is an absolute marvel. I mean, the scriptures and the Bible and all the scholars and the archbishops and the popes may have desecrated the female personality and the female essence. And they did it because they knew that the female body and the female essence is far superior than the male essence.
Very powerful.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
And even more powerful because we knew that.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, but I want to explain a little bit why. And I think it's important to understand. So, physically, a male is stronger than a female, and it will always be the case because their role is different, right?
Right.
I mean,
Hunter-gatherer.
the female is
Yeah.
more to create, nourish, and
Yeah.
she's more in tune with sensitivity and perceptions. So the male is more on the active side, you know, the more on the aggressive side and all this stuff. So the physical body is of a male will always be more
Well, he's the
powerful.
protector.
Yeah,
right?
he's a protector.
He's the
too.
protector.
He's a protector, absolutely. So, and the female body would be considered negative in polarity, right? The male body is positive because more energetic. The female body would be negative. There is nothing wrong with positive versus negative. It's just two polarities. It's like electrical current, right? You need both.
Right.
Now, if you look at the energetic body, which is actually giving the life to our physical cells and physical organs, so the energetic body, which is also called the etheric body, has a reverse polarity. So the male energetic body is negative, where the female energetic body is positive. And that explains why a woman has to have tears, or she's capable of crying and having more
Having
tears, emotions,
more emotional.
and why she has to have periods too, because the energetic body produces more than what she needs to sustain her life. And the reason why the energetic body produces more is because she's capable of giving another life.
Okay, that makes sense.
Makes sense, right?
Makes sense.
Yes.
So we really have to appreciate all the women who still have their menstrual cycle.
Yeah.
You have to really honor them and honor yourself.
Right.
Because it's the most beautiful process you can have. I know at the time I didn't feel that way. It's like, oh, another. But I wish I could have it again because I would definitely honor that. It's really to be able to do that is really so important for us. So
Yeah. So I think it's very important that the male people, the male audience, understand the differences.
that's why there's a crying.
Yeah, and the female also understand why they need to cry and
Right.
why they are more emotional and
Right.
why they need to have their periods.
Right.
Because there is this surplus of energy that needs to be eliminated.
Right.
Okay, a man will eliminate a surplus of energy through other ways, okay? I'm not going to get into that, but it could be through aggressivity, extra sexual activities and stuff like that. But for a woman, the normal way of doing it is the periods and the capability to cry. And that's why it's also very difficult for a man to cry, because there is not this extra production
Right.
of fluid and liquid, in the body, which is actually driven by the energetic body. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So we could talk a lot about the, Immaculate Conception, and I mean there are ways to improve the way the children will come in your family, but I mean that's another subject. I don't want to get into that.
Okay.
Most of it we really don't have the control. It's driven by karmic past and karmic reasons, and we have to accept what we get.
Right.
But there are ways to
Both ways, parent and child,
yeah,
right?
right. But there are ways to improve our
experience.
and our children. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's it for episode 2. Thank you so much for tuning in to us, and I hope to see you back again.
Thank you very much.